Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 true stories that will restore your faith in humanity. So if you look at the media, it's easy to see the world in a bad light. Well, these are some stories the media won't report on, but they will make you restore your faith in humanity. So if you want to feel happy for days and be inspired by kindness, then check out these stories. And if you want to restore my faith in humanity, then subscribe and press the notification bell too. Coming in at number 10 is favorite teacher. So, a lot of kids don't like school. Some people say school doesn't let kids feel creative and doesn't let them be themselves. Now, you may agree with this, but I'm sure we all had one teacher who really did believe in us. Well, one of those people was Josh Johnson. Now, of course, we all know Josh Johnson today. He's a massive comedian on The Daily Show, The Jimmy Fallon Show, and even Heart of the City. But when he was a kid and he told his friends and family he was going to do stand-up, everyone thought he was an idiot. They said he wasn't funny enough, and most of his teachers said he wouldn't make enough money from it. However, one teacher was different. After Josh did stand-up for the first time ever at a high school talent show, his teacher said, "I'm gonna see you on The Tonight Show one day." Well, years later, Josh really was on The Tonight Show, but he didn't forget what that teacher said to him all those years ago. So he decided to fly his teacher out to see him on The Tonight Show. He knew his teacher would see him on TV anyway, but he wanted to say thanks for those amazing inspirational words all those years back. He got a massive shout out on the show and the entire audience applauded him. This just goes to show sometimes all people need is one person to believe in them. And you never know, you could be that person. Next up is Love Thy Neighbor. So right now, there's a big divide between Mexico and the USA. A lot of people say there should be better borders, while others say they should let more people in. Well, whatever your views happen to be on that, there's no doubt this photo will bring you inspiration and happiness. So one day in Mexico there was a fire. However, there were no local fire stations, so this could have been a massive problem. However, luckily in Arizona, right by the border, there was a nearby fire truck. Now technically those firefighters didn't have to help out. They're paid by the American government to only fight fires in America. But they saw they could make a difference and maybe even save lives, so they took the chance. They sped over to the border and quickly put out the fire. And thanks to these firefighters, nobody was hurt in this incident. The world really needs more of these people who looked past the differences and simply did the right thing. And after this photo went viral, many top Mexican politicians thanked these firefighters for their service. Coming up next, we have adoption. So when you're a kid, the most important thing in the world is your parents. When you're young, they literally do everything for you. And if you ever have a problem, you always know there's someone you can talk to. Well, some kids don't have that, as they don't have any parents. Millions of kids in America alone have to live in adoption centers as they don't have any parents. Now this is very sad, but for one kid, she got the best news ever. One Monday afternoon, her adoption officer walked over to her and told her something amazing. She said, "You've finally been adopted after 8 years. And as soon as she said that, the kid jumped into her arms and she was so happy. It may seem like such a normal and basic thing to have parents, but this girl was so ecstatic to finally have some. Her amazing reaction was caught by a security camera and it went viral. This really goes to show what a nice thing it is when people adopt a kid. And thanks to this video going viral, maybe it inspired other people to adopt children. Next up is Breakfast with Dads. One day a middle school in Dallas, Texas started a Breakfast with Dads program. This is a way for students and dads to bond together over breakfast. However, there was one problem. Many of the students didn't have father figures. Of course, the school didn't want them to be left out, but they didn't want to cancel the event either. So they posted on Facebook requesting for 50 volunteer dads. Now this may sound like a big ask. However, something extraordinary happened on the day of the breakfast. Over 600 dads from all backgrounds showed up. People heard about this through Facebook and so many people were inspired. A lot of the fathers who showed up didn't have father figures themselves when they were kids. So they wanted to make sure the local youth didn't miss out on childhood things like this. It was an amazing sight when these extra 600 dads showed up, and the school said they were stunned and amazed. One thing's for sure, for the kids who didn't have father figures, I bet their faith in humanity was restored. And it's all because of regular people turning up and doing something great. Next up is Bookworm. A lot of elderly people don't have many hobbies when they're older. They sometimes don't have the friends and family they used to and can get kind of lonely. However, lots of them have little rituals and events they always do, like going to the park or the mall. Well, one old lady goes to a supermarket every day to read all the books. She would go and stand for hours on end reading the books. Now, you may think a supermarket manager may get kind of angry at this as she never actually bought the books. But no, instead, this supermarket manager restored her faith in humanity. He thought it was nice and sweet that she came to read books every day. So instead of kicking her out or making her buy the books, he put a bench down for her. He put it right in the space where she used to stand, so now she's able to sit every day and read the books. This is a very kind thing to do, and shoppers say she uses the seat every day. And since this image went viral, the supermarket manager has restored more than just this elderly woman's faith in humanity. Next up is bird love. When you're in a relationship, there's a lot of ways to say I love you. It could be a wedding or a big grandiose gesture like going to Paris for a weekend, but sometimes it can be the little things that people really appreciate. One day a girl posted a photo on Twitter saying this: "Every morning my father places bird food in the yard for my mother to wake up to this view. As you can see, the father puts bird food in a heart shape. This way when his wife wakes up and looks out of the window, she'll see a heart made of sparrows." Now not only is this really genius and creative, it's also really sweet too. It may be a small act of kindness, but it gets his wife in a great mood every morning. It may not be a diamond ring or flowers, but sometimes just bird seeds can make people feel so happy. Next up is Animal Hero. So, we all know one of the biggest problems in Kenya is water. A lot of people have a lack of water, and everyone knows about this thanks to the media. However, what many people don't know is that a lot of animals don't have any water either. This leads to thousands of animals passing away every year thanks to simply not having any water. Now, of course, that sounds awful. However, one man in Kenya decided to put a stop to this. So every day this man drives hours in the drought to provide water to thirsty animals in Kenya. He has no obligation to do this, but simply wants to out of the goodness of his own heart. We've seen people's faiths in humanity be restored, but I think these animals' faiths in humanity have just been restored. Remember, the guy doesn't have to do this and isn't getting paid or anything, but he takes out 8 hours of his day every day to do this. And his sacrifice is a massive deal, as he's literally saved the lives of thousands of animals. If there was ever a superhero for animals, I think it would have to be this guy. Next up is Hold On. So when you step out of your house in the morning, the last thing you expect is to be saving somebody's life. But for a few strangers, that's exactly what happened. A couple of people were walking on a bridge in North London, UK, when suddenly a man jumped over the railings. Now, he didn't jump off the bridge immediately, but he went over the other side. He was very upset for some reason and threatened to jump off. However, a group of strangers, scratch that, heroes, told him to hold on. They made him hold on, and some even grabbed his legs and arms. They then waited and talked to him for 2 hours. When emergency services got there, they were able to rescue this man and take him away. However, they said if it weren't for this amazing group of strangers, the man could be a goner. None of the people knew each other beforehand, but this is an incident they will never forget. And it must have brought this group of strangers very close, knowing they all had a hand in saving a man's life. It's not every day you see an amazing display of humanity like this. The people must have all wanted to get home and see their families after a long day at work, but instead they saved a man's life. What would you have done if you were caught up in this insane situation? Next up is Bird Savior. So we've already seen the animal hero in Kenya who gives water to thousands of animals every single day. Of course that was in a poor country, but this photo goes to show that even in a rich country, animals still need help. One day in a Starbucks in Los Angeles, somebody saw an amazing sight. He was reading at a coffee shop when he looked behind him and saw this. There was a man on the computer looking up vet services, and in his hand was an injured sparrow he'd just found. He apparently saw the bird outside limping around, but instead of just walking by and getting on with his day, he scooped it up and helped him out. Luckily the vet services came and this sparrow's life has been saved. But just imagine if the guy never did that small act of kindness and this bird passed away. This just goes to show if you ever see an animal who doesn't seem right on the street, always do something about it and don't just ignore it. But just imagine if you saw a man with a sparrow in a Starbucks, I would be so confused. But at the same time, my faith in humanity would almost definitely be restored. Next up is Anthony Borges. So when I say hero, you may picture a soldier or a firefighter, or maybe something else, but one thing you wouldn't picture is a 15-year-old high school student. Well then meet Anthony, who's 15 and goes to a Florida high school. He was recently caught up in the terrible event in Florida where a guy came into a school and shot a bunch of kids. Now this was awful and caused 17 people to pass away. However, if it weren't for this kid, the number could have been much higher. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but this 15-year-old named Anthony used his body to hold the classroom door shut during the shooting. This protected 20 other students inside who would have been killed otherwise. However, Anthony paid the price for saving all those lives, as he was hit by 5 bullets. Now, luckily they had to go through a door so he didn't have his life taken. He was rushed to hospital where he survived. Just imagine saving more lives than your age. It's crazy to think a 15-year-old could save 20 people's lives, but Anthony amazingly did. I hope he has a speedy recovery, and I'm sure he will. So, coming in at number 10, we have Saving Dog. A lot of us have a soft spot for dogs and other animals, which is why it's always a tragedy when one is hurt or put in danger. In 2014, a woman called Sue Drummond was walking her Shih Tzu dog named Bibby in Melbourne, Australia. Bibby was small and weak, but the wind was not. And Bibby ended up being blown into the rough waters of the Melbourne pier that Sue had been walking her on. Many onlookers watched, but nobody stopped and helped, and Sue thought that Bibby was done for. Until a passerby named Radin, who was scattering his grandmother's ashes into the waters, saw the dog. He quickly stripped down to his underwear and saved Bibby's life. While no one else helped, Radin saved the day with an act that I'm sure would make his grandmother very proud. Next up, we have sacrificial athlete. Athletes train all year round for that end goal, a big win. But in this image, one runner proved that there's more to being a great athlete than just winning. Megan Vogel and Arden McMath had been running rivals at their school before the race. On the day, the race began and Arden was in first place, with Megan in second, when suddenly Arden's leg gave out and she fell. Every other runner ran right by, using her fall as an opportunity to get ahead. However, Megan stopped, despite the fact that she likely would have won if she had kept going. She helped Arden up and wrapped her arm around her shoulders before slowly running to the finish line with Arden so that both girls could complete the race. While Megan did make a sacrifice, she didn't exactly lose out, as a professional running team saw this act of good sportsmanship and offered her a place on the team. Next up, we have shoes for homeless. When you think of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, amazing scenery, the Olympics, and lavish beaches come to mind. But the darker side of Rio that they don't want you to see involves mass poverty. One American tourist was exploring Rio when he found himself in a poor area, and in that area was a young homeless girl sporting tatty clothing and no shoes. While the tourist didn't have any money or food about him, he gave up something simple but essential: his shoes. The man handed his flip-flops over to the homeless girl so that she wouldn't have to hurt her feet walking on the hot sand. It may be a small sacrifice for the man, but it's a huge help for the girl. Next up, we have kitten carrier. In Cuttack City, India, floods are frequent, and they can damage homes, businesses, and even injure people. In a time of great crisis like this, it can be easy to flee and save yourself and forget everyone else. But one hero waded through dangerous water to rescue these kittens that were recently born in the area. They were found clinging to a tree branch about to be washed away by the choppy waters. While most people were only thinking about themselves, this man decided to save the day by saving these kittens' lives. The photo really shows that no matter how bad things get, helping others is always a noble thing to do. Next up, we have triathlon hero. A lot of fathers and daughters do bonding activities together. However, this can sometimes prove difficult if your daughter has a condition like cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy restricts your movements and causes your muscles to be too weak to move. This man named Rick Van Beek runs a local triathlon with his 14-year-old daughter Maddie every year. He pulls her in a kayak during the swimming part, pushes her in a cart during the cycling part, and pushes her wheelchair for the running parts. Rick shows that even though his daughter has a life-changing condition, she can still bond with her dad just like any other girl. And he says that while he is Maddie's legs, she is his heart. Next up, we have a flower for a soldier. Today, there are many conflicts all around the world. Soldiers often get a bad rep from citizens of countries they're in because of the results of warfare that can sometimes occur. However, this amazing image shows an American soldier being given a flower by an Afghan girl. Even though some people in the two countries may have differences, this is one act of compassion caught on camera. The image is also an example of the innocence and good nature of children that is bound to make you smile. Even the soldier looks pretty blown away by this amazing act of kindness. Next up, we have free books. With ebooks and the rise of digital media, bookstores are a declining business. However, one awesome bookstore left out this sign. The sign says that if someone comes to the store with no money and they want to read a book, then they can go ahead and help themselves. Even though the bookstore is probably going through hard times too, they still accommodate for those with little or no money to enjoy reading. The store's owner says reading is something that everyone should be able to enjoy, and this could even help students or unemployed people to learn. It's safe to say that this is one amazing act of kindness. Next up, we have free subs. We usually don't associate big businesses with being kind to those in need. However, one Subway store in Los Angeles displays this sign every Friday. The sign says that all homeless people in the area are to be given a free meal. This really shows that not all businesses are ruthless and sometimes want to make a real difference. While many people buy a Subway sandwich every day as a typical lunch, to some it's a rarity to have a meal, let alone a whole Subway sandwich. Whatever Subway worker came up with this idea definitely deserves a raise. Next up, we have sheep savers. We've seen people rescuing animals such as dogs and cats, but what about sheep? In 2012, two men named Erik Bjornoy and Torvald Ask were walking near the sea in Norway. They saw what they thought was a white ball in the water and went to get it. However, once they got a bit closer, they were shocked to find a sheep in the waters. Erik considered jumping into the waters to rescue it, but this would end up with Erik and the sheep both facing the punishment of the waters. So instead, a dramatic rescue mission took place. Torvald lowered Erik into the water as he stretched across to pull the sheep ashore. After 20 to 30 minutes of trying, they finally rescued the sheep. Not only do these photos show the power of teamwork, but also the rescue of a very cute animal. Next up, we have free dry cleaning. Times are tough for a lot of people right now, and unemployment is on the rise in many parts of the world. This isn't exactly a very happy fact, but this photo is proof that some people can make anything positive, no matter how bad the situation. This dry cleaners called Plaza Cleaners in Portland, Oregon displayed this sign in their window. It says that if you're unemployed and need a suit cleaned for a job interview, they'll clean it for free. Plaza Cleaners have helped over 4,000 unemployed people to be able to afford dry cleaning and make their chances of landing a job increase dramatically. And it's estimated that it's cost them over $60,000. I hope this incredible act of kindness has boosted their business in return. So, coming in at number 10, we have Generous Kid. So, one thing kids don't have a lot of is money. They may get some money when it's their birthday or Christmas time, but it's usually not that much. And even if it was, it usually gets spent on candy or video games or all the other things kids want. Well, one kid saved up $120. Now that's already pretty impressive for a kid. But you'll never guess what he wanted to buy with that $120. Instead of buying toys or an Xbox or something for him, he bought something for others. Instead, this kid spent the $120 he'd been saving for an entire year on food. But it wasn't to organize some kind of massive buffet. No, he did something far better. That was, he made sandwiches with the money. He then bagged up those sandwiches and gave them to local homeless people. So, thanks to this young kid, hundreds of homeless people were able to eat. Most kids would not be thinking about doing something nice for other people like this. It's crazy that despite this kid's age, he has such great character. And just imagine how many homeless people's days were made when this kid gave them a free lunch. This kid really is inspiring and hopefully inspires all of us to be a bit kinder. Next up is Deer Saver. So you may have seen a lot of news articles of animals saving kids. It seems to be a pretty common occurrence that an animal saves a kid's life. In fact, I've got an entire video on it. But in this situation, a kid saved an animal's life. This took place in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, there's a lot of rivers, and sometimes they can overflow. This can wipe out houses and wildlife. And of course, it ends up with many animals drowning. Well, one day a boy in Bangladesh noticed a baby deer stuck in the waters. It couldn't get out as it was way too small and weak. But instead of playing it safe and walking off or going to get an adult, he acted quick. He took off his shirt and dived into the water to save the deer. He even risked his own life to save this deer's life. His entire body, including his head, was under the water while he was raising the deer up with his arm. Amazingly, this boy's strength allowed this deer to survive. But I'm not just talking about his physical strength, I'm talking about his emotional strength and bravery. Seriously, this young kid did something most adults wouldn't do. It's just lucky this boy happened to be around when this baby deer needed a hero. Next up is Tear Dryer. So this is an example of kids not exactly understanding the real world, but it's also an example of kids understanding it more than adults on an emotional level. So one day on TV, a Japanese politician was crying. I don't read Japanese, so I don't know what he was crying about, but he seemed very sad. While this was happening, a dad and his daughter were watching the TV. That was when all of a sudden the little girl picked up a tissue and began wiping away the guy's tears. Now of course she was wiping a screen and his tears didn't really go away, but she obviously didn't really get this. However, it's still a very nice gesture and a very sweet photo to have. It's crazy that this baby can pick up on someone's emotions and try and comfort them. It was first posted in Japan and then quickly went viral around the world. Next up is coat donors. So we've already seen that very generous kid who gave away $120 of food to homeless people. Well, this is another example of kids helping out the homeless. We all know that for homeless people, the winter is the worst time. It's incredibly cold outside and they have to sleep out there all night. And many homeless people don't even have enough money for basic clothing, let alone big thermal jackets. However, these Canadian kids did. That is why one winter in Canada, these kids tied their coats to street poles to help homeless people prepare for winter. They left labels on the coat saying they were free to take. And in the pockets, they put things like gloves and socks. This is incredibly kind of these kids to do, especially as Canada in the winter gets incredibly cold. It's great to see these 7 kids helping out. And what's amazing is these kids came up with the idea and did it all by themselves. One internet user even said this made them cry. Did this also restore your faith in humanity? Next up is Cop Helper. So nowadays, society is very tense. There's often issues with people and cops, and some say the cops are wrong and others say the people are wrong. But no matter what side of the argument you're on, you can't deny this is one very nice photo. One day in Baltimore, there was some kind of riot. So there had to be many riot police on the scene to keep people safe. But it was a very hot day, but as these were riot police, they had very heavy armor on. That is why one very nice kid came around and gave all of the police free bottles of water. Kids aren't usually very political. And I don't think this kid is either. I think he's simply doing something nice for his community, which is a good thing. If that were me as a kid, I'd probably be trying to sell the water, not give it away. But I guess this kid's better at restoring your faith in humanity than me. Next up is a dog's hero. So we've already seen one kid save a deer, and while deer are nice, most people love dogs. More specifically, puppies. In fact, according to polls, puppies are America's favorite pets. Well, one day in the Philippines, there was a water flood. This left one little girl and her puppy stranded. Now, the girl could have just left the puppy and got out of there, but instead she decided to be incredibly brave and heroic. She was able to scoop her very small puppy up into a bowl and then take it across the water. She prioritized the dog's life over hers, putting the bowl on her head. It's really amazing that she did this and saved the dog's life. Most kids would be scared and freaking out, but she remained very calm and saved a life. I don't know who was taking this photo, they probably should have helped out. But either way, the image did capture many people's hearts and restored their faiths in humanity. Next up is Coach Saver. So every baseball team has a coach. In the MLB, baseball coaches simply want their players to win. But when it comes to little leagues, coaches must also protect their kids. But in this instance, one of the kids protected his own coach. One day, a baseball coach had a medical malfunction. He collapsed on the floor during a game, but luckily one very brave 13-year-old was around. He administered CPR on his coach and called 911, and amazingly his CPR worked and the coach was okay. The ambulance showed up and took his coach to hospital, but the doctor said he was totally fine, all thanks to this 13-year-old boy. He paid him a visit in hospital afterwards and he was able to thank the kid for saving his life. This really is an amazing story and an amazing kid. It really goes to show that heroes come in all sizes, and no matter how good this kid is at baseball, he's definitely the MVP. Next up is Athlete Brother. So, one of the fun things about being a kid is doing sports. It's probably one of the most memorable things from your childhood, but unfortunately for some disabled children, this is not the case. You may assume that most severely disabled children will not be able to compete in sports, but occasionally you do see amazing adults helping these kids out. Well, in this case, an 8-year-old kid helped his own brother out. One 8-year-old kid named Lucas is disabled. You may think this means he can't compete in any sports, but thanks to his 8-year-old brother Noah, this is not the case. And a few years back, they completed a triathlon together. Noah was able to push Lucas in the running race, he was able to bike with him in the cycling part, and he even attached an inflatable boat to himself for the swimming part. It's amazing that Noah was able to do this for Lucas, and it just goes to show that with a hero, you can make anyone's life amazing. Looking at how severe Lucas's disability is, you may think he would never be able to do sports, but it just took his one 8-year-old heroic brother to stop this. Now when anyone in town looks at these two, they'll see two amazing sportsmen. I have to say congrats to Luca and Noah's parents for raising such great kids. Next up is Animal Lover. So this one takes place in the Philippines. Unfortunately, in some places in the Philippines, there are many stray animals, and these animals are often taken and sold by butchers. But one 9-year-old boy decided to do something about this, so he created a safe zone for all animals. Of course, being a kid, he didn't have many resources, so he simply built a shelter in his own garage. He made it from wood and wrote Happy Animals Club on it. Now, this is a great thing, and he was able to help around 4 animals in his area. But once this got press attention, he got much more funding. Now he's able to help many stray animals in his area survive. It's amazing that this 9-year-old set up this massive charity. He didn't do it for any personal gain, and he simply wanted to help out these animals. I have to say, it seems Filipino kids are really good at restoring our faiths in humanity. Next up is Hair Donator. So one day a girl named Ariana was out with her dad. Ariana then saw a little girl who was bald. She was only 3 years old and she didn't understand, so she said to her dad, "Why is she bald?" Her dad then said she was very sick and the medicine made her hair fall out. And that was when Ariana said, "Oh, she can have some of my hair." And that was when Ariana said, "Oh, she can have some of my hair." So Ariana went and got a haircut and donated her hair. You may not know this, but there are actually many charities where you can donate your hair. This is for kids and adults who have lost their hair due to chemotherapy. This really is a touching story, and it's amazing that someone so young could be so conscious. Ariana definitely is an incredibly kind kid who restored all of our faiths in humanity. Next up is Frozen Kid. So this one is coming from China. Now in some parts of China things get freezing cold, and sometimes in rural areas kids have to go long ways to get to school. Well, this year a photo of one kid in a Chinese school went viral. Every day he walks 5 kilometers in the freezing cold to attend school, and because of the way his hair is, all the snow gets stuck to his hair. He really does look like he's frozen solid. Luckily this kid's okay, but it's amazing what some kids have to do to get to school. This really makes me grateful that I didn't have to do this to get to school. Check out the poll in the top right corner to vote for the best kid on this list. I think they're all great, but my personal favorite was the kid who gave those homeless people lunches. If you want more amazing videos, then check out my second channel. There'll be a link to that on screen in a moment. But as always, thanks for watching. Check out some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.